Welcome everyone to our emergency preparedness event with our Red Cross associate, Mr. Tim Suda. So we'll get started in a few minutes, so please feel free to say hi in the comments.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Welcome everyone to our emergency preparedness event with Red Cross Associated Mr. Tim Suda. Good evening, I'm Cherry. Just to introduce myself, I am one of your sophomore council members and I am stoked to be here tonight.
Hey everyone, my name is Rutu and I'm one of your committee leaders today, and I'm also really excited to be here today. So, and have everyone meet Mr. Tim Suda. So as a reminder, we are going to have a QR code for attendance towards the end, so make sure you stay the entire time. So now, without further ado, tonight's speaker is Mr. Suda, and on behalf of Alliance so we welcome you with warm and wide arms. Thank you so much for joining us. We are truly honored. And we're going to go ahead and start with a brief introduction for Mr. Suda.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here this evening. I'm excited about the great work that you guys do in your club, and really just love working with great individuals like the leadership in this club. My name is Tim Suda. I work for the American Red Cross. I'm currently on our volunteer services team, but I actually work a lot in and around disasters, including deploying across the United States when there are disasters, emergencies, really any type of situation where people need assistance and are impacted by that emergency. And one of the big things with the Red Cross, one of the big part of our mission is to make sure that we are working to save lives. And we do that through preparedness. And so this is a very apropos presentation tonight that I'll be talking through that really gives some tips and tricks around preparedness for all types of emergencies, disasters, even just small emergencies like a car accident or issues where things just aren't going right. And we find it to be very important to do that. So I'm really excited to be here today, and we can get started with the presentation whenever you guys are ready. Perfect.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So here's the reality. The fact is disasters happen. Emergencies happen. They happen often. Many times they happen with very little or no warning. and they happen anywhere and everywhere and at any time. Every single year, communities across the nation face all types of disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, winter storms, wildfires that burn thousands upon thousands of houses. And the most common type of disaster is home fires. We actually, in the American Red Cross, respond to more than 60,000 home fires every year across the nation. In the state of Georgia, we respond to over 3,000 home fires. Most days we average about 12 fires a day, and home fires a day. And when it gets to be December, January, and February, those winter months, that number can jump up to 25 to 30 house fires each and every day that we respond to. In fact, I was just talking to a couple of your great leaders here about how the American Red Cross is responding and has been for a couple of days to an apartment complex fire that happened on La Vista Road. It was all over the news. A large number of families were displaced. We have a Red Cross shelter open, and we're assisting those who were impacted. And so it's really, really important that we are prepared for these. So one of the things that we like for you to think about is, what type of hazards do we face? Now, on the slide right now, on the screen right now, you can see 12 different types of emergencies that do occur and that we want you to be prepared for. I talked a little bit about home fires, but there are also earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, tsunamis, tornadoes, wildfires, extreme heat, thunderstorm, landslide, winter storm, and volcano. Now, some of these are more common here in Georgia and around Metro Atlanta than others, but the vast majority of these can impact the state in some way, shape, or form. While we may not have huge or have historically had huge earthquakes, we do potentially and can have them. We rather regularly have hurricanes. While they may not directly impact the state of Georgia, the rain and wind and storms that spin off from that can impact. We do have flooding. In fact, we've had a few minor floods this year across the state that we've had to work with. Tsunamis are not common on the Atlantic coast, so that's not typically a disaster that we prepare for here in Georgia. But we do prepare for tornadoes. In fact, across the state, just in 2023, we have had 4 major disasters around tornadoes in the state. We do have wildfires from time to time. Extreme heat has also been an issue in the past, where we have supported communities with cooling stations. We have thunderstorms regularly, and while thunderstorms themselves don't necessarily cause disasters or emergencies, they can. Lightning can create fires. The high winds and rains can create flooding and can create other types of damage, like trees falling on homes or apartments. Landslides are also relatively rare in Georgia, but it is something that can happen. And similar thing for winter storms. Doesn't happen often, but we can have, and we have had a few massive winter storms that have occurred. And then volcano, not really a thing that we have here in Georgia, but it is something to think about. So in any disaster that we talk about, and then thinking about any other types of emergencies that may occur. And those emergencies could include things like a transportation incident, like maybe you're on a bus or a train or a plane and there's an incident. Maybe you're in a building and there's an active shooter or other individual on the loose that may cause issues, safety concerns. It could be any type of emergency, but a lot of people assume that there's always going to be someone else there to help. However, that's not always the case. There's not always resources to support everyone immediately. First responders, disaster organizations, government agencies, hospitals, they all do their best. But on average, all of these groups are staffed and prepared for normal day-to-day operations. And those resources may be limited in a disaster, especially in what we call those first 48 hours. The truth is, we have to depend on ourselves first. And that's why we're talking today. Why? Why do we have to depend on ourselves first? Well, roads can be impassable. You may not be able to drive on them. Utilities may not be available. You may not have power. You may not have water. You may not have internet. Hospitals and first responders could be overwhelmed. And then banks, grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, pharmacies, schools, they may all be closed for a few days, depending on the emergency. You may also need to think about helping other members of your household or neighbors or those who have functional or access needs. We really want to drive home the point that you can't always count on receiving help right away. So it's important that you have a plan. Now, all of us, we can and should be prepared to help ourselves and our household. Will the preparation be perfect? No. Will the preparation make things quick, easy, and painless? Not always. But planning and preparation will help you to be safe and recover quickly. So what does prepared mean? What does it mean to be prepared? Well, when we're prepared, we can take proactive actions to be safe. We can react in the right ways. We can adapt to tough challenges, and we can recover quickly from these difficulties. So what does it take to be prepared? To be Red Cross ready, there are 3 things that you need. 1, get a kit. Your kit should contain supplies that you need at home or can easily carry with you if you need to evacuate. The second is to make a plan. You should identify the steps you will take to respond to specific disasters. For each disaster, you should decide who in your household will do what, where you will go, and how you will communicate with each other. And be informed. It's important that you are informed. So learn how you're going to get information if a disaster occurs. What resources are available to you in your community? And this is going to help you to quickly respond to help yourself, your household, and your community. So let's take a look at each of these in a little bit more detail. If disaster strikes, you may not have access to food, water, electricity, a medical facility, or even a drugstore. So preparing a disaster kit for your household is an important step to keep everyone safe and healthy during a disaster. I want you to consider assembling 2 kits of supplies. In one kit, put everything you will need to stay at home for at least 3 days. As you are able, work to gather enough supplies in this kit to last for 2 weeks. The other kit, which we often call a go bag, can be a lightweight, smaller version that you can take with you if you have to leave your home quickly. It should contain everything that you would need to be on your own for 3 days. Now, based on the needs of the member of your household, this could be one kit for the entire household or separate kits for each member. We also encourage you to customize kits to meet everyone's personal needs and the disasters that are common to your area. I also personally would encourage you to think about the things that you may want or use regularly and want to take with you if you needed to evacuate or want to have with you should a disaster occur, and keep those placed somewhere where you can easily access them. So an example of that is if you take medicines for any reasons, if you have a keepsake that really means something to you, you want to be able to grab that or have easy access to it should you need to evacuate or end up in a situation where you need your kit. So the next is to build that kit. Think about what you're going to be doing on a daily basis, what you need. And think about what resources may not be available. Start with your basics first. What do you need every single day? Food, water, clean air, and any life-sustaining items that members of you or your family need to maintain your health, safety, and independence. Now, that could be non-perishable, easy-to-prepare foods, maybe a manual can opener, water. And remember that you may be without electricity and also without water. So thinking about how much water you need to store is important. So how much do you think? Well, you should have at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. About half of that should be for drinking, and about half of that should be for sanitation. Now, you may need more than that depending on specific needs of those in your household and the environment that you live. For example, if you live in a particularly hot region or it's a very hot time of year, you may need more water than that just to stay hydrated throughout the day. You also want to consider having a flashlight and a battery powered or a hand crank radio. If possible, we do encourage a NOAA weather radio so that you can get important weather statement. You may also want to sign up in advance to receive emergency communications from your local emergency services. A lot of fire departments, police departments, sheriff's office, emergency management agencies have great resources for that. We always encourage extra batteries, a first aid kit, making sure you have a supply of medications and medical items that you regularly need or could need. Keeping a copy of any prescriptions and dosage and treatment information in case you are separated from your home and you may need that information. You may also want to consider any specific battery backup for devices that you may need, like oxygen, mobility devices, or other assistive technology needs. We also encourage you to have a multi-purpose tool and sanitation and personal hygiene items, and current digital photos of loved ones. Remember to update these every few months, especially for those under 18, because people, our looks change from time to time. And should we need to try to find someone or identify where someone's at, having an updated photo will be extremely helpful. You want to make sure you have that cell phone and that cell phone charger, your household information, including emergency contact information, and at least one emergency blanket. You may also want to have some maps of your area because, a lot of us, if you're like me, I use the maps on my phone all the time. And if the internet's not working, the cell service isn't working, or my phone's dead, I don't have access to that. Now, I want to be really clear here. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed by all of the things I just said. Preparedness is a process that takes a little time. So I encourage you to consider building your kit one step at a time. Focus on adding a couple items a week until you feel like your kit is complete. You're always better off to have something at least started rather than not having anything at all. And if you have pets or service animals, make sure you make a kit for them or include supplies for them in your kit. Again, food, water, ID tags, and other necessary supplies are extremely important. But no matter what's in your kit, it's important that everything works when disaster strikes. So if you have food in it, check the expiration date. If you have medicines and batteries, check their expiration date. Replace anything that's expired or near expiration or isn't any longer functioning. Now, we've talked about disasters and the essentials for your kit, but we also want you to think about how you may need to customize your kit based for the specific needs of your household and the types of disasters or emergencies that may be possible in your area. For example, there are weather radios with text display and a flashing alert so you can stay informed even if you have difficulty hearing. You may also, you always want to be able to store what you need in your kit. So again, you may need any medical supplies that you use regularly. If you need syringes, glucometers, diabetic testing strips, catheters, anything like that. If you undergo routine treatments or receive regular services, talk with that service provider on how to have an emergency plan. If you have any assistive or adaptive devices or communication boards or tables, if you have a baby in your household, you want to make sure there's bottle formula, baby food, and diapers. With your pet, maybe an extra collar, a leash, ID, things like that. And maybe an extra set of vehicle keys or house keys. So some additional supplies that you can think about may not be needed for every person, may not be needed for every situation. But you could do a whistle, a respirator, matches, rain gear, towels, work gloves, tools to secure your home, extra clothing, sturdy shoes, scissors, duct tape, household bleach, just all sorts of things like that would be great for your kit. Now that I told you building a kit was the first step, Now we want to make a plan. So different hazards require you to take different actions. For example, during a tornado, you're going to move to somewhere safe, a basement, a storm cellar, an interior room on the lowest level with no windows. For a home fire, you have 2 minutes to evacuate immediately and meet at a designated safe meeting place. So we encourage you to talk to everyone in your household about how to prepare for and respond to the hazards that are most likely to happen where you live, work, and play. And identify responsibilities for every team member in your household. Work together as a team. If someone in your household is a member of the military or travels regularly for business, or is just away from time to time, plan on how you're going to respond if they're away. Individuals with access and functional needs may need to prepare a little bit differently. And again, don't forget to think about what you're going to do with your pets. Not every shelter can accept pets because of health and safety concerns. We encourage you to have a good plan for that. And I know a lot of times, at least when I was a kid many years ago, we talked about what's your fire escape plan? Where are you going to meet? And then I didn't talk about it again. And a few years ago, my wife and I were talking, and we realized that if there was a fire in our house, she was going to go next door and I was going to go to the mailbox. Well, if we didn't have a plan, and now we do, if we hadn't had a plan, we wouldn't know where to find each other. And then if an emergency or fire or something like that happened, we wouldn't know where to go. So it's important to think about that and continue to think about that as well. So that plan should always include key details like 2 ways to evacuate from every room in your home, your neighborhood, or your town, depending on how big the disaster is. If you are separated during disaster, we encourage you to have 2 places to meet. One right outside of your home in case of a sudden emergency like a fire. That could be a mailbox, a neighbor's house, a certain tree, but far enough away that you're safe. And an area outside of your neighborhood in case you can't return home or are asked to evacuate. That could be a specific business or restaurant or your school or something like that. An important part of your disaster plan is how you're going to communicate, especially with you and your family members are not together when the disaster hits. So make sure that everyone has contact information written down for everyone. Just storing it in your phone, not always going to work. We also encourage you to think about ahead of time what important records you need and where should they be stored. So do they need to be in a safety deposit box? Do they need to be in a fireproof box? If you're without power, without an extended time, or you have to evacuate, it's important to have a place to stay. It's going to need to have a place close if you have to leave because something like a home fire and someplace farther away in case the entire community is impacted, like a hurricane, a flood, or a tornado. So this could be with a family member. This could be staying in a specific place. We do encourage you to have some sort of plan because hotels and shelters may not always be immediately available, if at all. And then once you have your plans developed, practice. Review plans with everyone in your household. If anyone has a personal support network or requires assistance, be sure to review the plan with them as well. Practice with everyone in your household. Practice with any friends and family who come and visit regularly, and anyone else you may need to rely on when there's a disaster. We also want you to be informed. And we'll mention that, but it's important to know what hazards you should prepare for. Being informed is an ongoing process. So here are some things you should do. You should know how your community warns of a coming disaster. Some communities have outdoor sirens for things like tornadoes. Others use media and smartphones to alert residents of severe weather or dangerous events. You can use a NOAA weather radio or listen to a local station on a battery-powered radio or television for updated information. Again, this can allow you access to important information even when the power's out. Understand the difference in a watch and a warning and how to respond to each. A watch means there's the potential for a specific type of a weather event or hazard. Be alert, start making preparations, monitor weather, monitor local emergency broadcasts, and be ready to take immediate action if conditions worsen. A warning means that a specific type of severe weather or hazard is imminent or already occurring. You should take immediate action to protect yourself when that warning is issued. And learn about an area before you travel there. Know the disaster risks they face and how to protect yourself. So if you're visiting an area that's known for regular earthquakes, know what to do when it starts shaking and when it stops. And also download the Red Cross Emergency app. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but it helps you to monitor 35 different severe weather and emergency alerts. Also, get to know your neighbors. They can be a great resource of community information if someone needs help. So we've talked a lot about important information today, and I want to make sure you don't forget what tools are available to help you, your loved ones, and your community prepare for disaster. One, make emergency contact cards that everyone in your household can have. That way you know how to reach people. It can include things like who's your doctor, who's your insurance provider for your car insurance or health insurance. What's the phone number written down for your grandma or family or friends who may help you out? We also encourage you to download the Red Cross Emergency and First Aid apps to your mobile devices. These apps can provide you with vital information in the event of disaster. The First Aid app is wonderful and covers how to do basic first aid things, like if you get cut or if you think you have a broken bone. It even covers some really cool pet first aid stuff as well. Both apps are free and available in both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. With your plan, you may want to visit the Safe and Well website. This is an tool that the Red Cross has created that when there is a disaster, it allows people to mark themselves as safe and well. Or if there's a disaster, it helps connect you to family members who may be impacted by a disaster that you can't find. But remember, you can't count on technology alone. Phones break, they lose their charge, cell coverage goes out, phone lines becomes overwhelmed. So make sure you think about how you're going to communicate if these things become available. So I want to thank you for your attention today. You've gotten started by first becoming aware of how to prepare for disasters and learning about the types of disasters in your area. To be fully prepared, be sure to create and practice your disaster plan, build your kits, and become informed about your community. We also encourage you to consider taking a Red Cross First Aid class so that together we can help our community be prepared for any disaster. Now, I want to wrap up my presentation today by just reminding you and encouraging you to download the Red Cross Emergency app. You can just search Red Cross Emergency in your Apple App Store or Google Play Store. It allows you to monitor 35 different severe weather and emergency alerts to help keep you and your loved ones safe. It's really helpful. You can customize it based on different areas, what types of disasters you want to have or emergencies you want to get notified about. Even helps you make a plan in the app itself. And I just want to remind everyone of the importance of it and how the app is totally useful by sharing a personal story. In January of this year, in my home, which I'm currently in my home office right now, in my home here in Griffin, Georgia, we had a series of tornadoes come across the state. There were 5 tornadoes that hit the county that I live in, including an EF2, which is a designation of specific wind speeds that went right over my house. My house was fine, but it did cause damage all over my property. Took out the power for 7 days, had countless trees down that we had to deal with. My wife couldn't even make it home that first night after the storm because the roads were all blocked. She didn't make it home until the next day. She stayed with one of her work colleagues, which was a really good plan to have. With all of that, the important thing was that I had the Red Cross Emergency app. because when there was a tornado warning, and it happened very quickly, I got notified on my phone. I was in a meeting. I got notified on my phone and was immediately able to get myself and my dog into safety to survive the storm. And then I was also able to use the app and the first aid app after the storm was over to make sure that I could support both myself and my community. The other time that the app was really helpful is I had it set to pick up where my current location was based on where my phone was at any given time. And this was back in March of this year. I was driving to Columbus, Georgia, to assist with a disaster that occurred. And what we didn't realize is the disaster was actually still going. We thought the severe storms had passed, and so that it was just wind and rain, but there was still the makings of tornadoes. And in fact, a tornado touched down within a mile of where I was driving. Fortunately, I got the weather alert on my emergency app. I was able to pull over in a very safe place and miss the tornado altogether. But if it hadn't been for the app on both of those occasions, things could have turned out much differently for me and my family. So I encourage you to consider downloading the app if you haven't already. But with that, that actually concludes my presentation, specifically on these types of preparedness. I just want to remind you to make that plan, be informed, and have a kit ready to go should you need it. And if you have any questions, the Red Cross is always here. You can also go to redcross.org/prepare for more great information.
Thank you so much. That was great, Mr. I'm sure that all of our members now learned the proper information needed to be prepared for any disaster. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
I have a quizzes game pulled up onto the screen, such as like test our knowledge on the information we learned here today and our knowledge on Red Cross in general. So please go ahead and enter the quizzes code and join the game.
How did I get to fourth place? You guys are too good at this.
Okay, congratulations to the top three. And so we're going to go ahead and close out our event. So I just wanted to once again say thank you to Mr. Suga for giving your time and giving us all this information that we needed. And I want to say thank you to our members for joining in on the conversation and making it interactive and just learning a little bit more about how to get prepared for an emergency or any disaster that could occur.
No, thanks again for having me. And I still don't know how I got fourth place. I did the presentation. I'm with the Red Cross. Y'all are just so fast.
Okay, so we are going to leave the QR code for attendance up for 30 seconds. And remember, to get the credit, you have to fill out this form by November 17th. This video will be posted on our channel if you want to refer back to it. And thank you guys so much for joining us all tonight, especially you, Mr. Sita, and everyone. Please have a great day.